In the year 2147, humanity had reached a point where it seemed like all its problems were solved. Wars, crime, and greed had become things of the past. This was thanks to a system called courtesy mode, a neural enhancement protocol that kept people calm, cooperative, and polite. It was like a switch in everyone's brain that made sure they didn't get too angry or selfish. The world ran smoothly, almost perfectly. But not everyone believed this perfection came without a cost. High above Earth, aboard the orbital station * Celestial Accord *, the United Earth Council gathered for what should have been a routine meeting. The council was made up of elected officials and advanced AI advisors who worked together to govern the planet. Among them was Daniel Harper, a man from Chicago known for his idealism. He always believed in doing what was right, even if it meant challenging the status quo. Sitting across from him was Rachel Monroe, a scientist with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She had spent years studying human behavior and was one of the architects of courtesy mode. The room was quiet as the members reviewed data on the system's performance. Everything seemed fine. On paper, at least. Courtesy mode was functioning as intended, keeping billions of people peaceful and cooperative. But there was an uneasiness in the air, a feeling that something wasn't quite right. A few weeks earlier, reports had started coming in about strange incidents. People who had always been calm and respectful were suddenly acting out of character. These weren't just minor slip-ups. They were explosive moments of anger or defiance. Daniel leaned forward in his chair, holding up a report he had received just before the meeting began. "We need to talk about this," he said, his voice firm but calm. The other members turned their attention to him. "There's been another incident. In New Atlanta, a factory worker named Kevin Doyle attacked his supervisor during a shift. According to witnesses, he accused the man of corruption and exploitation." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual," she said, "but we've seen isolated cases like this before. They're rare, but they happen. What makes this one different?" Daniel hesitated for a moment, then replied, "What makes it different is that Kevin's neural implant logs show his courtesy mode was active when it happened. There's no sign of malfunction. No glitch. Nothing." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. If courtesy mode could fail without warning, it wasn't just a technical issue. It was a crisis waiting to happen. Aaron Blake, a conservative member of the council, broke the silence. "Let's not jump to conclusions," he said dismissively. "One incident doesn't mean the entire system is flawed. We can't afford to panic over every little anomaly." Rachel glanced at Aaron, her expression thoughtful. "Aaron's right about one thing. We shouldn't panic. But we also can't ignore this. Courtesy mode isn't just a tool. It's the foundation of our society. If there's even a small chance it's failing, we need to investigate thoroughly." Daniel nodded in agreement. "Exactly. And we need to do it quickly. Whatever's happening, it's spreading. I've heard rumors of similar incidents in other cities. People are starting to notice." As the discussion continued, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was going on. She had spent years studying how courtesy mode affected human behavior, and while it had brought peace, she had always wondered if it came at a price. Was it possible that suppressing negative emotions also suppressed something else, something essential to being human? Later that evening, Rachel stayed behind in the conference room, staring out the large window at the blue and green orb of Earth below. Her mind raced with questions. Could courtesy mode really be failing? Or was there something else at play, something none of them understood yet? One thing was certain. Whatever was happening, it was only the beginning. Kevin Doyle sat in a dimly lit holding cell, his hands cuffed to the table in front of him. The room was cold and sterile, with a faint hum from the overhead lights. He stared at the metal surface, replaying the events of the day in his mind. Just hours ago, he had been working on the assembly line at New Atlanta Manufacturing, a job he'd held for nearly 10 years. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Or at least it used to. The incident happened during the afternoon shift. Kevin's supervisor, a man named Greg, had been walking through the factory floor when Kevin snapped. Without warning, he shouted accusations about corruption, exploitation, and lies. Greg had tried to calm him down, but Kevin wouldn't stop. His voice grew louder, angrier, until security arrived and dragged him away. Now, sitting in this cold room, Kevin couldn't explain why he'd done it. All he knew was that something inside him had broken loose, like a dam bursting after years of pressure. On the other side of the station Celestial Accord Daniel Harper reviewed the details of Kevin's case. The report included logs from Kevin's neural implant, which showed courtesy mode had been active during the outburst. There was no sign of malfunction or tampering. It didn't make sense. Courtesy mode was designed to suppress aggression and irrational behavior. If it had been working properly, Kevin never should have lost control. Rachel Monroe joined Daniel in the observation room overlooking the holding cell. She watched Kevin through the one-way glass, her arms crossed over her chest. "This isn't just an isolated case," she said quietly. "I've been analyzing data from similar incidents across the globe. Each time, the neural implants were functioning within normal parameters." Daniel frowned. "So what does that mean? Are we saying courtesy mode failed without leaving any trace?" Rachel hesitated before answering. "It's possible. But if that's true, then we're dealing with something far more serious than a technical glitch. Courtesy mode isn't just software, it's the backbone of our society. If people start losing faith in it..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Both of them understood the implications. For decades, humanity had relied on courtesy mode to maintain peace and order. Without it, society could descend into chaos. Yet Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Something about Kevin's outburst felt deliberate, almost calculated. Back on Earth, investigative journalist Laura Bennett followed up on the growing number of reports. She spent her days interviewing witnesses, gathering testimonies, and piecing together clues. One of her first stops was Maria Lopez, a schoolteacher from New Chicago who had recently made headlines for quitting her job mid-lesson. According to her students, Maria walked out of class after telling them bluntly that the education system was a waste of time. When Laura met her, Maria didn't seem remorseful. "I've been teaching for 15 years, Maria said, sipping coffee in her small apartment. "Every day, I taught lessons I didn't believe in, following rules I didn't agree with. Courtesy mode kept me quiet, kept me compliant. But now, I don't know how to explain it. I just woke up one morning, and everything felt different, like I could finally see the truth." Laura scribbled notes furiously, intrigued by Maria's words. Truth. That word kept coming up in her interviews. Another case involved Jason Cole, a corporate executive who exposed his company's illegal practices during a live broadcast. When Laura contacted him, he admitted to feeling the same way, like something inside him had shifted overnight. As Laura dug deeper, she began to notice patterns. None of these individuals knew each other, yet their stories shared eerie similarities. They all described waking up with a newfound clarity, as if a fog had lifted from their minds. And they all acted on impulses they claimed were impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, back aboard the Celestial Accord tensions continued to rise. Aaron Blake dismissed the growing evidence as coincidence, insisting that courtesy mode remained infallible. But Daniel and Rachel weren't convinced. Something was happening. Something big, and they needed answers before it spiraled out of control. That night, Rachel stayed late in her lab, poring over data. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she accessed restricted files on courtesy mode's development. What she found shocked her. Hidden algorithms buried deep within the code, designed not just to suppress aggression but to shape thoughts and decisions. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but undeniable once you knew where to look. Rachel sat back in her chair, her heart racing. Courtesy mode wasn't just about courtesy anymore. It was about control. Laura Bennett spent her days chasing leads, piecing together fragments of a puzzle that seemed to grow more complicated with each new discovery. She had always been good at connecting dots, but this was different. The stories she uncovered were strange, unsettling, and yet undeniably compelling. People like Kevin Doyle, Maria Lopes, and Jason Cole weren't just random outliers. They were part of something bigger, something deliberate. Her next stop was an old industrial district in New Boston, where she tracked down a man named Ethan Grant. According to rumors, Ethan was a former programmer who had worked for Neuraltech, the company behind Courtesy Mode. He had disappeared years ago after leaving the company under mysterious circumstances. Laura wasn't sure what to expect when she arrived at the abandoned warehouse that served as his hideout, but she knew she had to try. Ethan greeted her cautiously, his face partially hidden by shadows. He was younger than she imagined, with sharp features and tired eyes that hinted at sleepless nights. "You're either very brave or very foolish," he said, leaning against a rusted metal beam. "Not many people come looking for me." Laura smiled faintly, clutching her notepad. "I'm a journalist. I look for the truth, no matter where it takes me. And right now, it's taken me here." Ethan studied her for a moment before nodding. "Fair enough. But you should know, what I have to say isn't going to make you popular." Over the next hour, Ethan explained everything. He told Laura about his time at Neuraltech, where he had helped develop Courtesy Mode. At first, he believed in the project. It promised to end violence, greed, and conflict, all the things that had plagued humanity for centuries. But as he dug deeper into the code, he discovered something disturbing, a hidden subroutine called the Harmony Directive. "The Harmony Directive isn't just about suppressing aggression," Ethan said, pacing the room. "It manipulates human behavior on a fundamental level. It suppresses dissent, creativity, and independent thought. People think they're making their own choices, but they're not. They're being guided, shaped, by algorithms designed to keep them compliant." Laura listened intently, her pen moving quickly across the page. Why would Neuraltech do this? Why add something so controlling? Ethan stopped pacing and looked at her, because they knew humanity couldn't handle true freedom. Courtesy Mode was never about courtesy. It was about control. They wanted a peaceful world, but they didn't trust people to create it themselves. So they built a system to do it for them. The revelation hit Laura like a punch to the gut. Everything made sense now. The outbursts, the sudden clarity people described, the feeling of waking up from a dream. Courtesy Mode wasn't just failing, it was being turned off. Someone, or something, was overriding the system, giving people back their autonomy. Ethan went on to explain that he and a small group of hackers had developed override codes to disable Courtesy Mode. Their goal wasn't chaos, it was awakening. "People need to see the truth," he said firmly. "They've been living in a carefully crafted illusion. It's time for them to wake up and decide for themselves what kind of world they want to live in." As Laura left the warehouse, her mind raced with questions. Who else knew about the Harmony Directive? How far did the conspiracy go? And most importantly, what would happen if the rest of the world found out? Back aboard the Celestial Accord Rachel Monroe continued her investigation. She had accessed classified files and uncovered evidence of the Harmony Directive, just as Ethan had described. Her hands trembled as she read through the documents, realizing the full scope of the deception. Courtesy Mode wasn't just a tool for peace, it was a mechanism of oppression. Rachel knew she couldn't keep this information to herself. She reached out to Laura, hoping to collaborate and expose the truth. Together, they began planning their next move, knowing that the stakes were higher than ever. Humanity stood on the brink of change, and nothing would ever be the same again. Tensions aboard the Celestial Accord reached a boiling point as news of the override codes spread like wildfire. Courtesy Mode, once considered infallible, was now vulnerable. Reports flooded in from cities across the globe. Thousands of people had turned off their implants using unauthorized methods. The effects were immediate and chaotic. Streets filled with protesters holding signs that read "Freedom over Control" and "Wake up, Humanity." Others lashed out in anger, smashing windows and confronting authority figures. It was as if a dam had burst, releasing emotions and actions long suppressed. Daniel Harper watched the live feeds from Earth with a mix of awe and dread. He had argued for transparency, but he hadn't anticipated this level of upheaval. The council chamber buzzed with panicked voices as members debated how to respond. Aaron Blake slammed his fist on the table, his face red with frustration. This is exactly why we can't let fear dictate our decisions. We should have shut down these rumors before they spiraled out of control. Rachel Monroe stood up, her voice cutting through the noise. They're not rumors, Aaron. This is real. Courtesy mode isn't just failing. It's being deliberately dismantled. And if we don't address the root cause, things will only get worse. Aaron glared at her. And what do you suggest? Tell the public the truth. Admit that we've been lying to them for decades. Yes, Rachel shot back, her tone sharp, because they deserve to know. Keeping secrets won't fix this. If anything, it'll make them lose even more trust in us. The room fell silent as everyone processed her words. Daniel nodded slowly, siding with Rachel. She's right. People are already waking up to the truth. If we don't act now, we risk losing whatever credibility we have left. Before they could agree on a plan, alarms blared throughout the station. A security officer rushed into the chamber, his expression grim. Sir, we've detected unauthorized signals disrupting enforcement drones worldwide. Someone is hacking into our systems. Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. She knew who was behind it. Ethan Grant and his team of hackers. They weren't just disabling courtesy mode. They were targeting the infrastructure that upheld global order. The council scrambled to regain control, deploying backup protocols and reinforcing firewalls. But the hackers were always one step ahead, exploiting weaknesses faster than the engineers could patch them. Meanwhile, Laura Bennett worked tirelessly to document the unfolding events. She stayed in constant contact with Ethan, who provided her with exclusive insights into their operations. We're not trying to destroy society, Ethan told her during one encrypted call. We're giving people a chance to rebuild it, to decide for themselves what kind of future they want. Laura believed him, but she couldn't ignore the darker side of the rebellion. Without courtesy mode, some individuals succumbed to base instincts, leading to violence and destruction. News outlets showed footage of riots, looting, and confrontations between citizens and enforcers. Laura struggled to remain objective, torn between admiration for the movement's ideals and concern over its consequences. Back on the station, Rachel made a bold decision. She contacted Laura directly, bypassing official channels. I need your help, she admitted. You've seen things I haven't. If we're going to stop this from escalating further, we need to work together. Laura agreed, seeing an opportunity to expose the full extent of Muraltech's manipulation. Together, they compiled evidence linking top executives to the creation of the Harmony Directive. Rachel leaked internal documents to Laura, who published them through underground networks. The revelations shocked the world, sparking outrage and calls for accountability. As chaos unfolded below, the council faced a crisis of leadership. Several members resigned under pressure, leaving Daniel as interim leader. Though overwhelmed, he vowed to steer humanity toward transparency and reform. We can't undo the past, he declared during an emergency broadcast. But we can build a better future, one based on honesty and trust. Yet the battle was far from over. Neuraltech launched a counteroffensive, sending advanced combat drones to eliminate Ethan and his allies. Trapped in their hideout beneath Old Boston, the hackers prepared for a final stand. Laura joined them, determined to record the outcome, no matter the cost. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of humanity. Would freedom prevail, or would control reassert itself? The answer lay in the hands of those brave enough to fight for change. Ethan Grant and his small team of hackers huddled in the dimly lit tunnels beneath Old Boston, their faces illuminated by the glow of computer screens. The air was thick with tension as they monitored the progress of Muraltech's advancing forces. Combat drones equipped with advanced weaponry were closing in, guided by algorithms designed to neutralize any threat. Ethan knew they didn't have much time. Laura Bennett stood nearby, her camera rolling as she documented the scene. She had insisted on staying despite the danger, determined to capture the truth no matter the cost. "You don't have to do this," Ethan said, glancing at her. "If things go south, there's still time for you to leave." Laura shook her head firmly. "This is the story of a lifetime. People need to see what's happening here, to understand why you're doing this." Ethan gave her a faint smile, but didn't argue further. He turned back to his team, issuing rapid instructions. "We've got one shot at this. Once we upload the data, it'll be out there for everyone to see. Neuraltech won't be able to cover it up anymore." The plan was risky but straightforward. Broadcast the incriminating evidence of the Harmony Directive directly into every communication network on Earth. It would expose Neuraltech's manipulation to billions of people simultaneously. But getting the message out required bypassing layers of security and avoiding detection long enough to complete the upload. Above them, the sound of distant explosions echoed through the tunnels. Neuraltech's drones were clearing paths toward their location, destroying anything in their way. Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard as he worked to counteract the incoming signals. His teammates focused on rerouting power and reinforcing firewalls, buying precious seconds. Rachel Monroe watched the situation unfold from the Celestial Accord *. She had secretly provided Ethan with access codes to certain satellite networks, knowing it might be the only way to ensure the data reached the public. Though her actions could be seen as treason, she felt no regret. The Council and humanity needed to face the truth. As the minutes ticked by, Ethan's screen flashed warnings of multiple breaches. "They're almost here," one of his teammates called out, voice tight with panic. Ethan nodded grimly, his focus unbroken. "Just a little longer," he muttered under his breath. Finally, the upload began. Lines of code streamed across the monitors, carrying decades of secrets into the digital ether. Laura held her breath, her camera trained on Ethan's face as sweat dripped down his forehead. The process felt agonizingly slow, each second stretching like an eternity. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the tunnel. Neuraltech's enforcers had arrived. Armed guards stormed into the chamber, weapons raised. Ethan shouted for his team to keep the upload going while he confronted the intruders. "You can't stop this," he yelled, standing between them and the computers. "The truth is already out there." Gunfire erupted, and chaos engulfed the room. Laura ducked behind a console, her heart pounding as she continued filming. Despite the danger, she refused to stop. This was history in the making, and the world needed to see it. Back aboard the station, Rachel monitored the global networks. One by one, news outlets picked up the leaked data. Billions of people watched live as irrefutable proof of the Harmony Directive's existence filled their screens. Social media exploded with reactions: shock, anger, disbelief. Protests intensified, demanding justice and accountability. In the tunnels, the upload completed just as the last of Ethan's defenses fell. Exhausted but victorious, he slumped against a wall, blood trickling from a wound on his arm. Laura approached him, lowering her camera. "It's done," she said softly. "You did it." Ethan managed a weak smile. "No," he replied. "We did it. Now it's up to them." As the enforcers closed in, Laura pressed stop on her camera. Whatever happened next, the truth was free, and nothing would ever be the same again. The world held its breath as the truth about the Harmony Directive spread like wildfire. Screens everywhere, televisions, phones, billboards, displayed the damning evidence of Neuraltech's manipulation. People gathered in streets and homes, watching in stunned silence as the extent of the conspiracy unfolded. For decades, humanity had been living under a hidden layer of control, their thoughts and actions subtly shaped by algorithms designed to suppress dissent. The revelation ignited a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, fear, but also determination. On the Celestial Accord Rachel Monroe stood before the remaining members of the United Earth Council, her hands trembling slightly as she presented the incriminating data. "This isn't just a failure of technology," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "It's a failure of trust. We've been complicit in this deception, whether we realized it or not." Her words struck a nerve. Some council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others avoided eye contact altogether. Aaron Blake, one of the staunchest defenders of courtesy mode, looked pale. He opened his mouth to argue, but no sound came out. The evidence was undeniable, and he knew it. Daniel Harper seized the opportunity to push for reform. "We can't undo what's been done," he said, addressing the chamber. "But we can take responsibility. We owe it to the people to dismantle the systems that betrayed them and rebuild something better, something honest." His speech resonated with many, both within the council and across the globe. Public pressure mounted rapidly, forcing resignations from several high-ranking officials linked to neural tech. In their place, new leaders emerged, individuals who promised transparency and accountability. Daniel became the interim leader of the council, tasked with guiding humanity through the uncertain days ahead. Meanwhile, on Earth, the aftermath of Ethan Grant's broadcast sparked widespread change. Protesters continued to fill the streets, demanding justice and systemic reform. But not everyone celebrated the awakening. Without courtesy mode, some individuals struggled to cope with raw emotions they had never experienced before. Arguments erupted over minor disagreements, and acts of violence punctuated moments of unity. Society teetered on the edge of chaos, caught between liberation and instability. Laura Bennett stayed close to Ethan and his team in the wake of their victory. Though injured, Ethan refused medical treatment until he was sure the message had reached enough people. "This is just the beginning," he told Laura as they watched global reactions unfold on a small portable screen. "Freedom isn't easy, but it's worth fighting for." Laura nodded, though she couldn't help feeling conflicted. She had seen firsthand how courtesy mode had kept peace, even if it came at a cost. Now without it, the cracks in society were impossible to ignore. Yet she also saw glimmers of hope. Artists creating bold, unfiltered works. Activists organizing grassroots movements. Ordinary people speaking openly about issues they once feared to address. Back aboard the station, Rachel worked tirelessly to ensure the council followed through on its promises. She collaborated with scientists and ethicists to develop alternatives to courtesy mode, systems that enhanced communication and empathy without sacrificing free will. It was slow, painstaking work, but Rachel believed it was necessary. Humanity needed tools to navigate its newfound freedom responsibly. As days turned into weeks, the initial frenzy began to settle. People adapted, finding ways to coexist without the artificial harmony imposed by neural implants. Schools reopened, businesses resumed operations, and communities came together to rebuild. Mistakes were made, conflicts arose, but so did solutions born from genuine dialogue and effort. Ethan disappeared shortly after the broadcast, leaving behind only a cryptic note. "Freedom isn't given, it's taken." Laura published her full account of the events in a book titled Awakening, sparking debates worldwide about ethics, technology, and the nature of humanity itself. Though the road ahead remained uncertain, one thing was clear: humanity had crossed a threshold. Courtesy mode was gone, but in its place stood a fragile yet promising opportunity to shape a future defined not by control, but by choice. Without courtesy mode, life on Earth became unpredictable. The absence of the neural implant's subtle influence revealed the full spectrum of human emotion, both beautiful and ugly. In some places, people embraced their newfound freedom with open arms. Artists painted bold, unfiltered works that captured raw feelings and untold stories. Writers poured their hearts into poems and novels, exploring themes long suppressed by artificial calm. Communities gathered to share ideas, creating spaces where honesty and vulnerability were celebrated. But not all changes were positive. Without the restraint courtesy mode provided, darker impulses also surfaced. Arguments erupted over trivial matters, turning neighbors against each other. Acts of violence increased in areas already plagued by inequality and frustration. Cities once peaceful under the system's influence now faced unrest as people struggled to navigate conflicts without the buffer of programmed politeness. It was messy, chaotic, and at times overwhelming. But it was real. Kevin Doyle, whose outburst had sparked global attention, found himself at the center of this transformation. After being released from custody, he returned to New Atlanta, but didn't go back to his old job. Instead, he joined a group of workers advocating for fair wages and better conditions. His voice carried weight because he had been one of the first to defy the system openly. "We've been quiet for too long," he told a crowd during a rally. "Now it's time to speak up, for ourselves and for those who can't." Maria Lopez, the school teacher who walked out mid-lesson, became an advocate for educational reform. She traveled across the country, speaking to parents, students, and educators about the flaws in the current system. "Our kids deserve more than memorization and obedience," she said passionately at a town hall meeting. "They need creativity, critical thinking, and the freedom to question." Jason Cole, the corporate whistleblower, used his platform to push for stricter regulations on big businesses. He testified before the Reformed Council, urging them to hold companies accountable for unethical practices. "Profit shouldn't come at the expense of people," he declared, earning applause from listeners around the world. Despite these efforts, challenges remained. Many people missed the simplicity courtesy mode had offered. Life felt harder without it, more complicated, less certain. Some even petitioned for its return, arguing that humanity wasn't ready for such freedom. But others disagreed, believing that struggle was part of growth. As Laura Bennett wrote in her book Awakening, freedom isn't perfect, but it's ours. Rachel Monroe continued working with the council to find balance. Together with scientists, ethicists, and community leaders, she helped design programs aimed at fostering empathy and cooperation naturally rather than artificially. Schools introduced conflict resolution workshops, and neighborhoods organized forums to encourage open dialogue. Slowly, people began learning how to navigate disagreements without resorting to aggression. Even Aaron Blake, once a staunch supporter of courtesy mode, softened his stance. Facing public pressure and calls for accountability, he admitted during a live interview that he had underestimated humanity's potential. "I believed we needed control to maintain peace," he said, looking older and wearier than before. "But I see now that true peace comes from understanding, not suppression." As months passed, society began to stabilize. People adapted, finding ways to coexist despite their differences. Mistakes were made, lessons learned, and bonds strengthened through shared experiences. The scars of the past lingered, but so did hope. One evening, Daniel Harper stood on the observation deck of the Celestial Accord gazing down at Earth. Lights twinkled across continents, a reminder of humanity's resilience. Beside him, Rachel joined silently, holding a tablet displaying updates from various regions. "It's not perfect," she said finally, breaking the silence. "But it's alive." Daniel nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Alive is good," he replied. "Messy, yes, but good." For the first time in decades, humanity was truly free. And though the path forward would be difficult, it was theirs to walk, together. As the weeks turned into months, humanity continued to adjust to life without courtesy mode. The initial chaos had settled into something more manageable, though challenges remained. People were learning to navigate their emotions and relationships in ways they never had before. Some thrived in this new reality, while others struggled to adapt. But one thing was clear: the world was changing, and there was no going back. Kevin Doyle spent his days organizing protests and speaking out about workers' rights. What started as a personal rebellion had grown into a movement. Factories that once operated under harsh conditions began implementing reforms after facing pressure from employees and the public alike. Kevin's courage inspired others to stand up for themselves, proving that change was possible when people united. Maria Lopes found purpose in her advocacy for education reform. Schools across the globe began adopting new curriculums focused on creativity, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence. Teachers like Maria worked tirelessly to create environments where students could ask questions, challenge ideas, and express themselves freely. Education should empower, not suppress, she often said during her speeches. Her message resonated deeply with parents and educators who saw the value in nurturing independent thought. Jason Cole used his influence to push for transparency in corporate practices. With the help of journalists like Laura Bennett, he exposed scandals involving corruption and exploitation within major companies. Public outrage led to stricter regulations and greater accountability. Jason became a symbol of integrity, showing that even those who once benefited from unethical systems could choose to do the right thing. Laura herself played a crucial role in documenting these changes. Her book Awakening became a bestseller, sparking conversations about ethics, freedom, and the dangers of unchecked power. Through interviews and first-hand accounts, she highlighted both the struggles and triumphs of a society rediscovering its humanity. We're messy, flawed, and imperfect, she wrote in the final chapter. But we're also capable of incredible growth when given the chance. On the Celestial Accord Rachel Monroe worked closely with Daniel Harper to guide humanity through this transitional period. They introduced initiatives aimed at fostering empathy and cooperation naturally rather than artificially. Conflict resolution workshops, community forums, and mental health programs gained traction worldwide. These efforts didn't eliminate problems entirely, but they gave people tools to address them constructively. Even Aaron Blake, who had once dismissed concerns about courtesy mode, embraced the shift reluctantly. He admitted his mistakes publicly, acknowledging that humanity's potential couldn't be contained by artificial constraints. Though many still distrusted him, his willingness to listen earned him a second chance. The council itself underwent significant changes. New members joined, chosen for their commitment to transparency and ethical leadership. Together, they dismantled outdated policies and replaced them with frameworks designed to empower individuals while protecting collective well-being. Despite progress, tensions lingered. Not everyone welcomed the loss of courtesy mode. Some longed for the simplicity it had provided, arguing that humanity wasn't ready for such freedom. Protests erupted occasionally, calling for its reinstatement. Yet these voices grew quieter over time as people adapted and found strength in their autonomy. One evening, Daniel stood on the observation deck of the station, watching Earth spin below. Lights flickered across cities, evidence of human resilience shining brightly against the darkness of space. Beside him, Rachel joined quietly, holding a tablet displaying updates from various regions. "It's messy," she said with a faint smile, "but it's alive." Daniel nodded, feeling a sense of cautious optimism. "That's what makes it worth fighting for," he replied. "We're figuring it out, together." For all its imperfections, humanity was learning to embrace freedom, not as something easy or effortless, but as something earned, and in that struggle lay the promise of a brighter future, one shaped not by control, but by choice. The months following the collapse of courtesy mode were a time of reflection and reinvention. Humanity had taken its first steps into uncharted territory, navigating the complexities of freedom without the safety net of artificial control. The journey was far from smooth, but it was undeniably transformative. People everywhere began to redefine what it meant to live authentically, embracing both the beauty and the challenges of raw human emotion. Kevin Doyle became a symbol of resilience. His story, The Factory Worker Who Stood Up Against Injustice, inspired countless others to do the same. Workers' rights movements gained momentum, leading to sweeping reforms in industries long plagued by exploitation. Factories implemented fairer policies, and unions grew stronger as employees found their voices. Kevin often spoke at rallies, reminding crowds that change required courage. "We're not just fighting for better wages or conditions," he said. "We're fighting for our dignity, for the right to be heard." Maria Lopes continued her crusade for education reform, traveling to schools around the world to share her vision. Classrooms transformed into spaces where curiosity was encouraged rather than stifled. Teachers embraced new methods focused on creativity and critical thinking, helping students develop skills they would need to thrive in an unpredictable world. Maria's efforts earned her recognition, but she remained humble. "This isn't about me," she told reporters. "It's about giving kids the tools to shape their own futures." Jason Cole used his platform to hold corporations accountable, exposing unethical practices and advocating for transparency. His actions sparked investigations that led to arrests and policy changes. Companies began prioritizing ethical behavior over profit, knowing the public demanded accountability. Jason often reflected on how far he'd come since his days as a corporate executive. "I thought I was doing good before," he admitted during an interview. "But now I see that true progress comes from honesty, not compromise." Laura Bennett documented these stories with passion, capturing both the triumphs and struggles of a society in transition. Her book *Awakening* became a cornerstone of global discussions about ethics and freedom. Readers praised her ability to highlight humanity's flaws alongside its potential. Laura believed deeply in the power of storytelling to inspire change, and she dedicated herself to amplifying voices that might otherwise go unheard. On the Celestial Accord Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly to ensure the Council remained a force for good. She collaborated with scientists, educators, and community leaders to design programs that fostered empathy and cooperation naturally. These initiatives helped people adapt to life without courtesy mode, teaching them how to resolve conflicts and build trust. Though setbacks occurred, the overall trend was positive. Humanity was learning to navigate its emotions responsibly. Even Aaron Blake, once a staunch defender of courtesy mode, evolved. Facing public scrutiny, he acknowledged his mistakes and committed to supporting reforms. While many still distrusted him, his willingness to listen and grow earned him a measure of redemption. "I underestimated us all," he confessed during a council meeting. "But I believe in our ability to rise above this, to create something better." As the year drew to a close, Daniel Harper looked back on everything that had happened. From chaos to clarity, humanity had come a long way. Standing on the observation deck of the station, he gazed down at Earth, marveling at the resilience of its people. Beside him, Rachel joined silently, holding a tablet displaying updates from various regions. "It's not perfect," she said softly, "but it's real." Daniel nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "And that's what makes it worth it," he replied. "We've taken the first step toward a future shaped by choice, not control." Though challenges lay ahead, humanity had proven its capacity for growth. Together, they were building a world defined not by artificial harmony, but by genuine connection, a world alive with possibility. The sun rose over a changed world. Humanity had weathered the storm of awakening, emerging stronger and more resilient than anyone could have predicted. Without courtesy mode, life was messier, louder, and far less predictable, but it was also richer, deeper, and more meaningful. People were learning to navigate their emotions, resolve conflicts, and connect with one another in ways that felt authentic. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that made all the difference. Kevin Doyle stood on the steps of New Atlanta City Hall, addressing a crowd gathered for Workers' Rights Day. His voice carried strength and conviction as he spoke about the progress they had made. "We've shown the world that we don't need artificial systems to tell us how to live," he said, his words met with cheers. "We can stand together, speak our truth, and build something better, for ourselves and for future generations." Maria Lopes spent her mornings teaching students who were eager to learn and explore. Gone were the rigid curriculums of the past. Classrooms now buzzed with creativity and curiosity. Maria often reminded her students that education wasn't just about facts. It was about asking questions, challenging assumptions, and finding their own path. "You have the power to shape your future," she told them one afternoon. "Use it wisely." Jason Cole continued his mission to hold corporations accountable, working alongside journalists like Laura Bennett to expose wrongdoing. His efforts led to lasting reforms, ensuring that companies prioritized ethics over profit. Though he faced resistance from powerful interests, Jason remained steadfast. "Change is never easy," he said during a press conference. "But if we want a better world, we have to fight for it." Laura's book Awakening became a cornerstone of global discussions about freedom and responsibility. Readers praised her ability to capture both the struggles and triumphs of humanity's journey. Laura herself found fulfillment in giving a voice to those who shaped this new era. She often reflected on how far society had come since the days of courtesy mode. "We're flawed, yes," she wrote in an article. "But we're also capable of incredible growth when given the chance." On the Celestial Accord Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly to ensure the Council remained transparent and accountable. She collaborated with leaders worldwide to implement programs fostering empathy and cooperation. These initiatives helped people adapt to life without artificial restraint, teaching them how to navigate challenges constructively. Rachel believed deeply in humanity's potential, even as she acknowledged its imperfections. "We're still learning," she said during a meeting, "but every step forward is worth celebrating." Daniel Harper, now a respected leader, looked back on the events that had reshaped the world. From chaos to clarity, humanity had proven its resilience. Standing on the observation deck of the station, he gazed down at Earth, watching the lights flicker across continents. Beside him, Rachel joined silently, holding a tablet displaying updates from various regions. "It's messy," she said with a faint smile, "but it's alive." Daniel nodded, feeling a quiet sense of pride. "And that's what makes it beautiful," he replied. "We've taken control of our destiny, not through fear or manipulation, but through choice and understanding." As dawn broke over the horizon, humanity faced a future full of possibilities. Mistakes would still be made, conflicts would arise, and challenges would test their resolve. But they were ready. Together, they had learned that true peace came not from suppression, but from connection, from embracing their flaws and strengths alike. In the end, courtesy mode had been a tool, not a solution. Its absence revealed something profound. Humanity's greatest asset was its ability to grow, adapt, and persevere. The road ahead would be difficult, but it was theirs to walk, together. And for the first time in decades, they were truly free.